Hey, folks.
Read it?
Wherever you are.
All right. Hello out there in Packer Nation, and welcome to another edition of the Absolute Packer Podcast with me, Andrew Hetzel, Elliot Christensen, and Jeremy Houtola. What's up, guys?
Ready to rumble.
Let's do this.
This is episode number 49. I wish it was under better, circumstances. Just for those joining in the very beginning here, Bart Starr passed away yesterday. He was 85, and so it's kind of a, it's a melancholy episode, if you will, because he was probably my favorite Packer of the Lombardi era. I'm kind of an latecomer to becoming a Packer fan, so to speak, because I grew up a lot in Georgia. And so I was a little bit late. I moved into Wisconsin moved to Wisconsin in 2000. So that was when I first started to get immersed. I mean, I knew who Brett Favre was and, some of that kind of stuff. But in terms of old school Packer stuff, I knew who Vince Lombardi was, and I maybe heard Bart Starr. But without getting into that too much, we will definitely talk about and discuss and reminisce about Bart Starr. There's some other stuff we want to talk to before we get to that. So I think we can hop right into that. And let's see. So Ted Thompson revealed that he is suffering from autonomic disorder. That was, I'll say, it was not very surprising to hear that he had some kind of affliction. Nobody really knew what it was, but I think a lot of people during the latter half, maybe not latter half, but the last 3 to 4 year range, that something was amiss with him. He looked different. He would act a little bit different to the point where you knew something was off, but nobody was really saying anything. And I guess they were just giving him, his privacy. It's not something you're just going to go out there and yap to the world. I can't really see any organization doing that. So it's unfortunate, but I think if anything, and this actually I should take a step back. He got into the Hall of Fame, and this kind of press release about his condition happened right around that same time. I don't have much to say about it except for it sucks. Ted I think he was a great GM for a long time. It was rough at the end, and there's probably a reason for it. And now we have what that reason was. So I don't know if you guys want to elaborate a little bit on any of that.
Yeah, it was kind of funny because late last week we went to Titletown and just kind of we looked at the display of the panoramic. I forgot what they're called, but they kind of display different light colors and stuff like that, and it's a cool display. Well, anyway, we were kind of sitting there talking, and I was like, wow, this is absolutely amazing what they've done here, but then I was just thinking about it, and I'm like, all this effort and concentration was put on the other side, the west side of the stadium, and what happened in the football stadium on the football field kind of parlays to the issues that Ted Thompson was having with his disorder and stuff like that, and how the personnel and the team kind of went down with it, and it sucks. When I heard about it, I didn't know what the heck his disorder was, so I went searching around on Mayo Clinic's website to try to find out about it. And I mean, the one part of it that really stood out to me was cognitive impairment. As a GM, that's vitally important to be able to decipher and take in information and being able to process it. So if he wasn't able to do that in the latter end of his tenure here, that truly sucks, because you need to have your mind when you're doing that role. So I know he came out and actually had a press conference, and he did have a statement, and he was very forthright and very honest about it. But at the end, he just said he wants everybody to respect his privacy and his family's privacy, and just kind of from here on forward, let it go, so to speak. And I can respect that. It sounds like he's struggling. I don't think it made it in the interview that he had. It made it sound like it was amicable partnering or parting ways between Murphy and Thompson. And my personal opinion is I think that was definitely a contributing factor, but also the product on the field was also the determining factor in the end of him being, finally relieved of his duty, because he has more important things to worry about right now. That's life, so it's just unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah, there isn't, I can't think of a whole lot more to be said there, in that, you have to think that, all this is kind of conjecture, I guess, at this point, but you have to think that he probably wasn't working as hard, on his job towards the end there. And so to me, it kind of gets a little murky from the standpoint, oh, there's a dog.
Yeah.
I don't know who it was.
Yeah, we've got a wildlife sanctuary here.
Nice. Threw me off a little bit. But anyway, so, yeah, I guess the only thing I'll say, and I don't want to pile on, I don't want to come across as piling on, but considering that his health was in decline, you almost wonder if this shouldn't have been done sooner. How many years sooner? I don't know. So it's kind of, hindsight's 2020, I guess. But all that kind of stuff aside, it's the new regime, everything, out with the old, in with the new, so to speak. And I just hope the guy, gets better and lives, a long, prosperous life. I don't know. How old is he? Is he in his mid-60s, I want to say?
Last time I heard, I thought he was like 66, 67
Okay.
or something like
Yeah,
that.
about that range. So, I mean, but he was an NFL player. So,
Yeah.
God knows if had got CTE, guys like that were that era. And I mean, he was a linebacker special teamer that was probably throwing himself around like crazy. So,
Right.
Yeah, I just hope that it doesn't get worse, and I hope he leads a long and prosperous life, I guess. So,
Yeah, when he was first originally taken in by Dr. Gray, who's the Packers doctor, they were first looking at CTE, being possibly one of the factors into his declining health. And from everything that we've read, and it sounds like they're going to be keeping a lot of this, on the down low, but there was no symptoms of that. There was no issues with that. So from what we know, which is going to be pretty limited, it doesn't sound like that was an issue, so.
do you know, this is like, I don't want to throw something out of left field if we're somewhat unprepared, but can they test and measure CTE in someone who's living, or is it only after like an autopsy? I don't know, to be honest with you.
I'm not really sure either, but everything that I have read and watched, documentaries and stuff like that, it's been all on brains of deceased people.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's anything they can do to test somebody that's alive at this point. So I don't want to speak on that and sound uneducated, but it sounds like mostly people that are deceased that they can detect it and do the test for it.
Yeah, you got to imagine that that technology's coming.
Right.
Some kind of scan or some kind of, maybe they can inject some kind of fluid or something that like they do with other things, where they can it'll change color under a certain scan or something like that. But I have no idea. I don't pretend to be a doctor, and I never will.
Right.
So that just kind of popped on the top of my head.
Yeah, and I mean the whole disturbing part of this is the Packers, like you said, Andy, are very loyal to their organization, to the people that work within. Has loyalty put this team behind? Obviously, in the last 2 years, it did. In many realms, head coach, general manager, on the field responsibilities, and now we're recovering from all of those years of being behind the eight ball and not being one of the better teams in the NFC North. Was it directly tied to Ted Thompson and not being at 100%, and Mark Murphy not stepping in and maybe having more of a pulse on the organization? It's quite possible. You know?
Yeah, I think the truth lies somewhere in between. Like anything, it's all those things wrapped. It's Ted and probably his health. It's McCarthy, being stubborn. It's Capers. It's bad drafting. It's all of it put together gives us what you got the past few years. I think it's pretty much as simple as that.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
yep, onward and upward.
Exactly.
So
what way to start on a fun subject.
I know, and we're gonna end on a great one too, right? It's just like
Well, actually, I think ending on the topic we're ending on isn't such a bummer.
No, it's not. It'll be a celebration of
this one,
his
man.
life and all that. Yeah, although it is a bummer. I hear what you're saying. Although in some twisted way, it's like there's relief from the standpoint of, okay, we're not crazy. Something was going on, because there were times where you're like, something's up with him.
That's what I wanted to say. Right. That's what I
exactly.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, again, it sounds kind of selfish,
but I think it was like a boiled lobster
obtuse.
situation, right? Like I feel like he probably
there's an element of that.
Probably got slowly worse. And where do you pull the trigger
Yeah.
if you're Murphy?
Exactly.
You're like,
where was the tipping point? Where was the tipping point?
Well, and is he going to get better? Like,
yeah, that's a good. I mean, let's hope. I'd hate to see him just. That'd be really sad if it just went down.
And when you work with people and it's a relatively small, tight organization, man, that's rough. It just is. And yeah, it's a business, and it's easy for us to take shots from the outside. But man, when you hear that it's a sickness, that's not good. That's not cool.
Oh,
that's
like I said. It's like bittersweet's not the right word, because you're like, oh, I'm kind of relieved because I know something was in fact wrong. Then you sit back and go, oh shit, something's wrong.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like this blessing and this curse type situation, and that's not the right terminology. I'm not even saying that right.
Yeah.
The unfortunate part of it is, I think health wise, it's a disorder that you can't. The odds are against you from recovering and being back to your full self again, especially at his age. I'm sure it's even more difficult. So it doesn't sound like it's something that he's going to progressively get much better with. And that's the sad reality of it, is that hopefully he can at least contain it and keep it within grasp, so that he can at least live and enjoy the rest of his life, away from the football field. So
right.
Yeah.
And also, Andy, that alarm that you just played, that is not the kind of thing I need to hear after watching the first 2 episodes of Chernobyl.
Oh, jeez. That was, what it was? I still haven't turned off. That was my med alarm. Which, full disclosure, I am completely off my recovery meds now. I had my last one about 5 days ago. So I'm completely off the E. coli anti-seizure meds. Praise the Lord.
Nice.
So I need to that alarm. But I'm so used to it for basically 6 months that it just left.
Good.
Yeah, pretty much as simple as that.
All right, onward and upward.
Cool. Yep, here you go. So this one kind of came out of nowhere. Josh Jones, I think it was about a week ago or so, and it was leaked through, I think, Rob Domofsky, some kind of thing through the local media, where he's requesting a trade. This will be his 3rd year. He's a safety, 2nd round pick from 2017. I'm not a mathematician.
2017.
I didn't believe there'd be any math in this. Yeah. What was that? No, what was that Chevy Chase thing from Saturday Night Live?
Right.
When he was Gerald Ford, and he's like, I wasn't aware there'd be any math in this debate. Sorry. I know I'm really dating myself too, but first thing I thought was, can't demand anything because he stinks. That might be a little harsh. Who knows? I mean, when they drafted Savage, the safety, the writing's on the wall. They drafted him to start. They traded up to get him, and then they also signed Adrian Amos from the Chicago Bears. So, Josh Jones, I guess, is one of those guys who's the tweener. Is he a linebacker? Is he a safety? He's got good measurables, but every time he's been on the field, it's been a mess. Let's just be honest. And so, he wants to get out. And part of me is like, good riddance. The other part of me is like, man up a little. It's just like if there's people coming to take your job, fight for it.
Fight for it.
Fight for it. But I don't know. I mean, again, he didn't show much his first year. He didn't show much of anything his second year. And in a way that the Packers showed what they think of him by their drafting and also signing the free agent safety. So what do you think?
Right. And I think, personally, I think he's better off near the line of scrimmage.
Yep. I completely agree with that.
Last year he was playing a traditional safety position, and I don't think he has the instincts to play back there. You need to have the ability to read an offense and diagnose in front of you, and I don't think he has that. What he has the ability to do is to be on the line and just be a head crasher, just butt heads and go after the ball carrier, and I think that's where he's at his best. So I was a little disappointed to hear about this because I think he himself feels he is better off near the line of scrimmage. And I think this whole transition of the defense, hopefully bringing him back up and playing that, that cycle package as Capers used to have it, where you would have a safety at the linebacker position. I think that would fit him tremendously well. So I was a little disappointed to hear that because I think he could really, in his third year, make a difference there because they don't have much depth at linebacker to begin with. But, at this point in time, he's made his point clear. And I think, like Elliot said, move on, move forward. If he doesn't want to be here, get rid of the cancer as soon as you possibly can because we don't need anything disrupting this train going forward. So if he doesn't want to be here, cut him, trade him, do whatever. But
trade him. You got to try and get something for him because he's a second-round pick. And I kind of made the comment when I shared this with you guys that it looks like based on past transactions that Gutekunst has done that he's good at getting draft picks for guys who probably wouldn't normally yield a draft pick. Think Clinton Dix and Ty Montgomery, guys like
right.
Second round pick, and you'd hope you can get something for him. But I'm kind of the same thing. Now, did they ever? I don't quite recall. Did they ever blitz him off the edge?
Occasionally. He had his very first start, which I can't remember who it was against, if it was against Cincinnati or something like that here, where he started and he had like 10 tackles, and I think he had a sack and an interception that game in the 2017, one of the first 5 games of the year. Yeah. He did blitz quite a bit that game. And that's where it looked really promising because he was attacking the ball. And that's the kind of guy that he is. He's just not a guy that can sit back and diagnose. He's an attacker. The problem with him now, too, on the trade market, you mentioned that, he's a box safety. And what I mean by that is he is confined to a certain area. He's not a
free safety. He's not a big cover guy.
And the NFL is transitioning away from those types of safeties. They want safeties like we have with Darnell Savage that can cover the slot receiver, can go from one side of the field to the other, can diagnose, can play on the line, can blitz, can do everything. Josh Jones is limited beyond being in the box. So that's the issue that you have, is that his trade market is not going to be very good. Some teams like maybe Oakland, who drafted a traditional box safety in Jonathan Abraham, maybe they would have a fit for him with Josh Jones coming there. But other than that, there's not many teams that play that traditional type safety anymore.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I highly doubt he's on the team. Considering it's barely even, you're not even to training camp and he's asking for a trade. And how is this going to end with him being on the team? I don't see it.
Right. And I love LaFleur's response to it. He was like, we are dealing with the guys that we have here. Perfect.
Right.
Perfect. Because when McCarthy was here, he would kind of be like, you know what? Whatever. But he said, we're dealing with the guys we have here. The people that don't want to be here, we're not going to even talk about it. So move on.
That's good. That's refreshing.
Right.
Cool. Okay. Kevin King actually practiced. So that
could be exciting.
I was going to say, I hate to say it, but that's a rarity, unicorn sighting. No, I'm just kidding. No, but he was injured all, I guess, off season and into, mini camps and stuff like that. But he practiced at the first public OTA So, what else? Excuse me. What else can you say except that's a trend upward, But when he like any guy like him, high pick, when healthy, and he seems to be pretty good. It's just so rare. Let's just hope he stays healthy. That's a good sign that he actually did practice.
Right. I'm hoping he's not another Nick Perry who misses half of his games in his first 2 seasons. I'm hoping his third year.
He already did, though, didn't he?
Right. I guess that's what I meant was,
Yeah.
2 peas in a pod. But the fact that he made it through without any injuries is a good sign. I can't believe we're saying that about a professional football player. Oh, he made it through practice without an injury. But that's where we're at with him,
Yeah.
So if anybody on defense this year is more important, obviously there's many important pieces to the defense, but Kevin King being on the field for 16 games is vitally important because he's going to have to be able to cover the bigger receivers that they are going to be playing this year. Everybody's putting 3-4 receiver sets out there, and the more defensive backs you have, the better. But his phenomenal length and his reach just make it so hard for a quarterback to throw over his shoulder. You have to, if you're throwing a receiver that Kevin King is covering, he has to be in front of you.
Yeah.
His length just makes it so hard to get the ball to the receiver. So he is very important to this year. If he could play a full 16 games, I feel very good about that defense being a top 10 defense in the league.
Yeah, I hear you. I was just thinking while you were talking, and I'm like, I'm going in my head what I kind of remember about Kevin King, and unfortunately, I don't remember a lot, and that's because I was in a coma. Times, and I had memory loss. And a lot of times when we talk about some of these guys, it's like my memories are so hazy. I don't remember much about the guy at all, except that he was a high pick and he got hurt. But other than that, I really can't remember much about him, which is unfortunate. And that happens with a few of these guys, I think, where do you go to? Washington State? Is that right?
Washington, University of Washington. So
I'll comment on what little I can on some of these guys, but when I don't, typically it's because I don't remember them. Unfortunately. Yeah. So.
Well, there hasn't been a lot to remember because he hasn't been in the field.
I know. I'm thinking of that too. I'm like, I don't remember a whole lot because I was sick, but I also don't remember a whole lot because he didn't do much.
Right.
So there's not much.
To be a difference maker, though.
There's not much to remember, I guess. Right. Okay. Are the Packers angling to host an upcoming NFL draft in
Of course. Why wouldn't
2024 or sometime after that? Well, you would hope. I saw some stuff posted online over the past week or so where they were in the running for one before 2022, but then they weren't, or they tried to do it and somebody else got it. I mean, it's kind of that whole question of, could Green Bay host a Super Bowl? No, I don't think they could. I don't think there's any way we can get rid of that. But things like a draft or things tiers beneath a event as big as the Super Bowl, they should go and fight tooth and nail for that. So I don't know if they're gonna, did they try and get 2020? Did they even try and get 2019? Are there certain stipulations with Titletown that they have to get that more ready and things like that? Maybe. But I guess, just kind of thinking out loud, if they don't host a draft in the next 5 years, I'd be stunned, and I would consider that probably a failure.
Yeah.
On that side of the, the business branding side of the coin here.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, 2022 is established all the way up to 2022.
Oh, okay.
They are established. So we're working for 2022 and after that. And I think that falls perfectly in line with how Titletown District is currently building up. And all the hotels that are building up down there, even on the east side of the stadium, I forgot what they're actually called, but there's actually where Brett Favre's restaurant it used to be. That's going to be a hotel as well. So they're really putting up, because I don't remember the exact hotel capacity that you need to hold the draft, but I know years ago we were significantly behind in that respect.
Yeah.
So right now it's progressively going up, and I don't know what the barometer is to finally get there, but I would assume we're getting pretty damn close.
Yeah. Where now? Here's the question. So, the actual physical draft event, where would that be held? And I'm literally just thinking out loud here. Like,
I would think in the atrium.
okay, it'd be at Lambeau the whole deal, because at first I'm thinking I'm like a theater kind of event or like a place, and I'm like, wait a minute, I guess they'd have to have it directly at Lambeau Field. They couldn't have it at one of these new establishments or one of these new buildings of Titletown. Couldn't really be that. It would have to be at Lambeau.
Oh, right.
And then part of me, this is just small town Green Bay stuff, but I'm like, they couldn't have it at the Meyer Theater, could they? Like, of course not. Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it too, Nashville, who hosted it this year, they had it on the main drag out there. So
Yeah.
could it be something that could be outdoors that could wind into Lambeau Field or even on the field? I mean, that would be the cool part, is to have it inside on the actual field itself. I mean,
It would definitely be at Lambeau. That's the biggest building, biggest whatever in the town. What's the next biggest? It's like, so
Yeah.
I think I answered my own question, but I was just thinking in my head, I'm like, wait a minute, where would they have that? So
yeah.
I think 2022 would be great.
I mean, the sooner the better is what I think. If they're waiting for, I mean, I don't know, outside of what they do have planned right now, and they have currently being built at Titletown, the district. I mean, what else is in the hopper? Do you guys know? I mean, they just finished that Titletown Tech,
Right.
which is actually pretty darn impressive. They got, I think, Microsoft, and they got a bunch of outside, money and what else. I mean, it's a bit corporate, but I'm like, bring it on. They need it, and that.
Yes.
So I'll take that. But what else do they have planned, either buildings, businesses, or attractions wise in that area? How much real estate's left, and what's the timeline? Do you guys know? I don't know.
There's plenty of real estate left. Only about half of the actual land mass is developed at this point.
I was going to say.
And the problem with it, though, is the Packers keep it pretty much hush-hush until you see an actual building coming up. Like, we had no
They have
clue
it all
about
fenced
Microsoft,
out. Yeah, they got it all
right
fenced
now,
out.
like I said, we were just there. And next to the Microsoft building, which just was put up last year, they have a blocked-off fence with cannot see inside. And there's something else going on there right now. I don't know what, but the Packers keep it pretty much tight-lipped until they actually have to come out and say something.
Yeah,
so what's going to happen? I don't know, but something's building there right now.
Yeah. I mean, that's good. There's still room to build and still room to grow and whatnot. So that's good.
And the fact that they extended that parking lot on the north side of the district facing Lombardi is they just blossomed that out now. There's got to be at least a couple hundred parking spots there now. So they've opened that up now. So they have ideas, because you need parking in order to house all the people coming in. You can't just do it in Lambeau, because we did this the other night. We parked in Lambeau Field parking lot, crossed Ridge, and almost got hit by a car, even though we pressed the light to get across the road. These flashing lights are all over the place, and we're like, a car, stop, So to make it more safe for everybody, I think to have the parking on that side, on the west side of Ridge, where they're developing Titletown, is important, and they've already opened up all of that parking now. So,
that's a good point, actually, when you're talking about like that flashing light area, because you guys are like this. I think it was about 2 weeks ago already. Feels like it was yesterday. It was probably about 2 weeks ago. I had just gotten back into some strength training, because I've been anemic and all that. I've just gotten to the point where I can actually lift some weights, and I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to ride my bike from my house. I live on the east side, down to Lambeau, to Titletown District, and I'm going to bring my football. I bought a brand new NFL football, and I'm going to go down to that little practice area, and I'm just going to freaking throw the ball and just see how far I can throw it, and just see throwing motion, because I normally play golf. That's my sport, but I have not even looked at a golf club probably in a year. I don't want anything to do with it, to be honest with you, just for whatever variety of reasons. But anyway, so I got out there, and I'm like, how far can I? And it was like I think I could throw a 25-yard pass. That's as far as I could.
Come on.
No, I'm serious. Look, I got to tell you, like the right tricep atrophied for a while, and there was nerve damage with the pinched nerve, and I got a ways to go, but it's like I can actually do the other day. I know I'm going off it. I can do like 6 or 7 push-ups. There was a time, even just like 6 weeks ago, I couldn't even do one push-up. Literally, my cardio was good and all that, but I would do one push-up and I would collapse. It's like there's a lot of work to be done there. But I rode my bike, and that flashing light thing you were talking about, I clicked on that, and I looked both ways, and there was plenty of time because when you ride a bike as much as me, you basically just assume nobody sees you and you're going to get hit all the time.
Right.
And I saw the flashing stuff, and there were people that were actually kind of far away, and I'm like, I'm going to go across here, and lo and behold, someone kind of turned right where I didn't see them coming, and it's very sad. Nobody's aware of much of anything, and they have all the bells and whistles there. So
they have all the bells and whistles, and I'm surprised that there isn't some type of a police officer sitting there, because they would make a killing off of tickets. Because when we crossed,
that's a good point. Jesus.
When we crossed, 2 cars went through the light that was flashing. 2, and that's illegal in this vicinity, or in the Green Bay Ashwaubenon area. That is illegal to do that. When that light turns on, you need to stop. And 2 cars went through. So is it a safety feature as well as a financial feature for the village of Ashwaubenon? It should be.
Elliot must love that. I'm watching him right now, and he's like, there's a way for the government to make some money. Just kidding. That's a whole nother discussion, but
absolute legal podcast.
Hey, nicely done.
Nice.
Nicely done. Absolute bureaucratic podcast. Yeah. It's just,
even better.
Yeah. APB. All right. Okay, we're going down the rabbit hole again. Anywho, that's what I had for draft / Titletown type stuff. Okay, here's an interesting one that just seemed to come out of nowhere, but maybe it had been talked about here and there, just in little pieces. But Packers' 3rd preseason game will be potentially in Winnepeg, Canada.
Yes, sir.
Sounds cool.
Why? I guess it's somewhere different, but why Winnipeg?
Why not?
Well, I'd rather go somewhere warmer. I don't know. The further north, like somewhere in our own country, towards the south.
Think about this, though. They'll be in the middle.
You know what they should do? Shit, sorry.
No.
You know what they should do? They should do it in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, in honor of Bart Starr. He went to Alabama.
Oh.
But we don't need any football fans. We got those.
I thought I had a brilliant idea, and then right when I said it, I'm like, that's not going to do anything because they don't care about the NFL. I mean, Nick Saban runs that whole state probably, so whatever.
Right.
But yeah, I was like, I mean, it's not that big of a. It sounds like it's not 100% for sure that they're going to Winnipeg, but there's a very good chance. And I know the Packers went to Japan when Favre, like right after they won the Super Bowl in the late 90s.
Yep.
The first Super Bowl, I think they went to Japan and did a preseason game.
Yeah.
But which that's cool going to Japan. Winnipeg, I'm like,
Well, I mean, I
don't want to shit on Winnipeg. That's not very fair. But at the same time, I'm like, what?
It is the Oakland Raiders, and you got to think about this. Before they wrapped up a deal to continue their season in Oakland Coliseum, they were looking to actually have a home. So I'm sure when they were out there kind of, fumbling around, they were just looking anywhere to play. And I think that contributed into the fact that preseason games were going to be held outside of the country. And Canada, which is they have the Canadian Football League there, which is a very popular sport there. In fact, many people in the UP follow Canadian football more than they do the NFL. So it's a highly respected sport up there. So it's not going to be like they're going up there and you're going to have 20,000 fans. They're in the middle of the Canadian Football League right around August time. So I don't know. I mean,
it's interesting. Considering you said that they have the CFL and it's pretty popular, that's another reason why you think they wouldn't want to do it. I don't know.
They're not competing leagues. There is.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know they're not competing, but at the same time, it's like pick. I don't know. Pick a different city. I don't know. That's all I got.
Well, they want to expand. They want to expand. You know, and they're putting feelers out. You know.
Okay. What do you guys feel about the Packers going to play in London?
If it's a true road game, I have no problem with it. But if they were, and this will never happen because the NFL would be screw loosed if they did. But if it was a home game and the Packers went to London, the league would be losing on millions and millions of dollars doing that. And that's why the Packers have not gone to London, because even on the road, they are the highest drawing visiting team in the NFL besides the Dallas Cowboys. So
not only do the Packers not want to lose a home game, they will never do that. Never. But the other teams that, the Packers go to visit, they don't want to lose that Packer game either. Right. So that's a good point. I think it'd be cool. And I mean, they're the only team in the league who hasn't gone, right? Or is there another one?
They've been all gone, have they?
No, not all.
Really?
I think there's two
There's
left.
only been there's been that many over in London?
Yeah, believe it or not. Yeah. Packers and somebody else. But, I think it'd be cool. And it's like, it's easy for me to just sit here and be like, okay, just one game, let them do it or whatever. But, I mean, I get the financial component of it too. I mean, I'll never take a home game away from Lambeau.
Nope.
That'll never happen. But maybe, a road game somewhere. I don't know. Who the heck knows?
Right. It'll be like if they play Jacksonville or
Jacksonville's gone like 15 times.
Yeah.
Right.
Sad.
Very sad.
Wait. Okay, I just looked this up. In
All right.
2019, the Green Bay Packers are left as the only NFL team that has not played in Britain.
Wow.
So because Carolina and Houston, which Carolina was one of the last teams.
Yeah.
They're going this year, so the Packers truly are the last team to not play.
Wow.
Interesting. I mean, not terribly surprising, to be honest, but how they reconcile that, or how it ends up happening, will be interesting. But so I don't have much more to say about the Winnipeg thing. I mean, maybe, I guess there's a chance it won't happen, but it sounds like it probably will.
It's wrapped up, it sounds like.
It just struck me. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now on to football, yet kind of non-football stuff, if you will. Aaron Rodgers had a cameo in Game of Thrones. And full disclosure, I have never seen an episode of Game of Thrones.
How did I know that was coming?
Neither.
And I
Oh, really?
And I do not plan on watching Game of Thrones. Now, part of that is me sitting on my high horse, but the other part of me is because I got the last show I got really sucked into was Breaking Bad. And that was like, geez, that's already been like 10 years, when that, I want to say almost. And like where you binge watch, where it's like you get sucked in. And I hate that because I'm not a big TV watcher. I'll watch, movies here and there with my daughter, but I don't watch TV. I just don't do it. And I don't really watch shows. I do other things. So part of me has this like fear in me where I'm like, if I watch one episode of one of these shows, I'm never going to stop watching, and so I don't want to get sucked in a way. But anyway, Game of Thrones was like, when I go on Twitter, it's like the whole freaking internet shuts down, or it doesn't shut down, but it gets super amplified when that show is on. And so anyway, Aaron Rodgers had some cameo, and then they interviewed him at his locker after the last episode, and he was pissing and moaning about it. And I'm kind of just throwing this topic out there because it's a topic of discussion, and it's been happening, but I don't know a damn thing about Game of Thrones. Nothing. So
I think he just had it for the blonde girl, because if you guys aren't going to watch it, bad things happened with the blonde girl, and he was kind of not happy about that. Danny. And I don't know. I mean, there's a reason he plays football instead of writing TV shows.
Well, when I went on the internet and they go, "Oh, here's Aaron Rodgers," and then they're like, "Nope, that's not him." Oh, here he is, here lined up as he's like a sentry guard or something, and he's like the fifth one down, and he's all blurry, and I'm like, and then like, no, that's not him either. He was just some bit player somewhere. But they were all these videos that they thought was him, and they weren't him.
Yeah, I don't think anybody knows for sure where he was. So was just.
And Rodgers hasn't even told him, huh?
Yeah. So he was just some bit player. which was a little disappointing because, like, whatever, put his face out. Like,
that's what you'd think. But at the same time, I'm sure he's probably thinking if I do that, then people are already giving him enough shit that, Oh, I love it when these people come out, these fans, and they go, "You're too busy filming commercials rather than focusing on playing football." Quite, that those are the hot takes that, they all,
Mhm.
So you never seen that show either, Jeremy?
I have no clue what it is, honestly.
Yeah, we're gonna have to join a club then. We're the only ones left. You and I are the only ones left who've never seen it.
It's pretty good. I mean,
it's like the best thing ever, but
it's not the best thing ever. I actually think Breaking Bad is better. Breaking Bad's the best television show to ever be on. So if you got to pick one, that is the one.
I like Breaking Bad a lot.
Breaking Bad's the best television show to ever be on. I actually am rewatching it. It's that good. I started rewatching it. There's nothing else that compares to it. It's the best show.
You know what's the best television show of all time, I think? Seinfeld.
Good say.
Seinfeld.
I don't know.
Since we're talking entertainment, it's like I was going to say, we're going on another tangent. Well, not really, because we're talking about fucking Game of Thrones. Okay. But Seinfeld was the fact that every other sitcom in the history of sitcoms would always do like the 1 or 2 or 3 episodes of a lifetime that were like the serious ones, right? The serious episode where they touch on this and that, and it's like Seinfeld never went anywhere near doing anything serious.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. I always loved that.
Good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That gets my vote. But no, Breaking Bad, I was actually just talking about it. Because I was talking about Game of Thrones with my brother-in-law the other day, and we were talking about Breaking Bad, and man, that was superb.
Yes.
And when you think about Bryan Cranston, Malcolm in the Middle dad, and you're like, talk about versatile,
Yes.
Crazy. And what a story. But so we don't have to keep
not as versatile as chugging beers though.
Oh,
very good segue.
Nice.
Okay. So yeah. So I tried to put all the extraneous non-football stuff at one spot, and So unless you lived under a rock for the past 4 weeks, David Bakhtiari has become a viral sensation, Packers left tackle, because whenever he goes to Bucs games, he takes 2 or 3 beers or whatever and just chugs them, downs them, shotguns them or whatever, and then he points over to Rodgers and gets the crowd all amped up. And as fine and dandy as that is, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it, and part of that's because I don't drink anymore, and part of it's Wisconsin is such a drunk state where it's treated as this religious experience to watch people chug beers. But I'm not going to I don't want to go, and be like old curmudgeon or whatever. It's just an opinionated. Obviously, it was big, and I'd go on Twitter and I'd be like, "Damn, that's pretty impressive." And then the funniest one was, I think he chugs like 2 or 3, and then he points over to Rodgers on the other side of the sideline. They go to Rodgers. He has like half of a little cup of beer, and he
gives up.
Yeah, he gives up. I'm like, not a good look. That was planned, but it was pretty impressive, I must say. And then they had Yelich. Did you see Christian Yelich?
Yes. Yeah, it was impressive.
So I don't know. Part of me is going, this is Wisconsin right here. There you go.
Totally. All they needed was cheese curds then too to top it off.
It's fine. It's fine.
Like I said, my own personal thing is I have different opinions on it, and it's my own. But what can I say? I mean, you give credit where credit's due, and some people, even if you don't like their activities, you have to say they're good at what they do. I say
no, you don't.
The best way to no, just hear me out. With music, what I was going to say is, like, when I go to see a band play, somebody, like a buddy of mine the other day, he's like, "You need to come out and see this band, blah, blah, blah." And I ended up, I don't think I went just because I had something else going on or whatever. But he sent a bunch of videos back, and it was like a 3-piece band, and I'm watching, I'm going, oh, this is brutal, but they're good at what they do, you know. So there's certain bands or just music out there that I can appreciate because for whatever genre or whatever, you know, stage antics they have, they're good at what they do. And so same thing with Bakhtiari. I don't like the whole beer chugging thing, but man, he's good at it. So keep her up, baby. That's all I got to say.
You know, if it keeps him good on the field, I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that big. But it was all over Twitter, and there was like a hashtag Bakhtiari challenge, and everybody's doing it like it was the frickin' what was that? Do you remember?
Ice Bucket?
Ice Bucket, yeah. Only reversed, because Ice Bucket was like to cure diseases. This is to, like, you know, bring on alcoholism, I guess. I don't know. First alcoholism. So, anywho, now, unless he's got any more to say about that, speaking of, you know, where David Bakhtiari was doing this was at the Fiserv Arena where the Bucs are playing. And I know this is a Packer podcast, but the Bucs, we were remiss if we don't talk about them. Man, did they go out with a whimper. Now, I didn't watch a single game, but when I did follow what was going on, it was on Twitter. That's the beauty. I really like Twitter during live sporting events because you can't see it, but you can, you know, sometimes watching text fly by and I'm getting nervous. It's weird. It's just being the sports fan thing. But God almighty, up 2-0, you know, in the series, and they were up 15 points in the late third quarter of an elimination game, and they lost. So they won. They were up 2-0, and then they got swept. It was, and all I could think was, this is so Wisconsin. The state, not the you know, university or whatever. It's just the amount of gut wrenching, so close but not yet there losses that our sports teams suffer it's stunning.
Yeah, I mean, even the Brewers last year, how they lost.
Yeah,
I watch. That's pretty much the only TV I watch. I watch all games, NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, you name it. I watch it all. So I watched every single minute of the playoff series. And the part of me that really struck a chord to me was you had David versus Goliath. Literally, I felt that way. You had a team who was supremely talented, Milwaukee, versus a team who wasn't supremely talented, but was like the Wizard, trying to figure out a way to beat the talented team. And they
Kawhi Leonard he's based on what that guy, he's probably the hottest player right now in the NBA. Right.
But the Raptors did everything to put the Bucks in weaknesses that the team had, which was half court offense, which we're not going to get into details, but like they kept them out of transition. They, whenever Giannis would drive down the middle, they would collapse and then recover. They were playing so phenomenal that they were just unbeatable at that point.
Yeah, and it sounds like from what I saw, the Bucks were either slow to. It sounds like a common theme in a lot of coaches. They were slow to adapt to changes. I read somewhere that Giannis never played 40 minutes, complete minutes in a game because they had some theory that they needed to keep him fresh, even though he's freaking 23 and they're trying to go to the finals. That sounds very stupid to me. And I mean, Giannis, he came up pretty small in the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, he didn't play bad, but if he's going to be the MVP and all that, it's like, you know. But then somebody had an interesting quote out there. They said, when Michael Jordan was his age, he hadn't gotten to the finals yet, and he hadn't done a few things at similar points. I think they had actually won. Their careers were somewhat similar in that regard. Age to what they have. MVP, won an MVP, but they hadn't gotten to the finals yet. So I mean, Giannis is still going to get better, but he's got to get. He's got to make free throws, number one, and he's also got to get some kind of mid-range because he was getting it was like he's getting triple teamed all the time from what I could read through Twitter. And, other guys, sometimes would make him pay, but sometimes wouldn't. But they allowed a 26-3 run. God, and you watch that? That must have been brutal to watch.
It was. And what killed them was the pick and roll. So when you have a pick and roll, you have, somebody that's going to pick the on-ball defender. And every time that would happen, you would have Kawhi Leonard on Brook Lopez, who is a 7'3" center who's not the most mobile guy. And Toronto did that verbatim. And I was shocked that the coaches, Budenholzer, did not respond with a smaller lineup to try to counteract that. He didn't do anything to adjust to Toronto's ability to just take it to the Bucks off the dribble. It was really kind of mind-numbing, like you were talking about, Andy, how they did not make in-game adjustments or even, series adjustments. That just killed me. Why would you keep on getting killed and not try to do something to combat it? They didn't. I don't know. It's done and over, but that was disappointing. That was disappointing because I really wanted to see. I'm not a real big NBA fan, but
I'm not either.
I really wanted to see the Bucks and the Warriors being put up, the two best teams in the league, and just seeing who would come out on top. I mean, obviously we saw the Bucks; they were not ready for this, so it probably wouldn't have ended up in their favor. Who knows?
They dominated the regular season, but they must have been, it must have been kind of like a paper champion, because they really never got pushed. I read somewhere they never lost more than 2 games in a row during the regular season, but then they lost 4 in a row, in the playoff. Now, it was the Eastern Conference Finals, so it's like they did accomplish something, but the way they lost it was just, getting there is good. And obviously, considering where the Bucks have been, mediocrity, for a long time. But man, did they go out with a whimper. So it was
not good.
I kind of brought it up because it was just like it was another Wisconsin heartbreak type thing. And it just somebody compared that loss to like the Seattle meltdown in the NFC Championship. I'm like, I don't know about that, but
I know.
I don't follow the NBA enough, but hey, what do you do? So let's see what else we got here. Okay, that's it for most of the big topics. Most, I say. Again, at the beginning of this podcast, we kind of teased it with Bart Starr passed away at 85 yesterday, and obviously there's been an outpouring of tweets from the NFL, from the Hall of Fame, from people who played with him, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I just kind of start off about what I thought of him, just me personally, and what I know and what knew, if you will. First of all, and you guys probably won't expect this coming, but his name, he had the coolest frickin' football name. Bart Starr is like the best football. It sounds like a fake name almost, Bart Starr, Brett Favre. It's like those two. It's kind of interesting, but it's like it's such a cool name, a cool football name. But just real brief history on me. Like I said, I spent a lot of my growing up down south. My dad is and my mom were originally from Wisconsin. That's how we kind of got back here, and that's where some of this stuff comes in. But I was watching the Falcons and the Atlanta Braves, not the Brewers and the Packers. But when my dad bought the business studying Super Bowl year, 1996. So that was the first foray into that, and watched it on TV. I was in high school, but I knew about Vince Lombardi and Brett Favre, and that was kind of it, before I got up here. And then when I got up here, I got immersed in the Packers, and just everything about it. Because when you move to a town like this, I think you can kind of go 2 ways is the way I look at it. You can either embrace what they have here, and the big thing is the Packers, or you can just kind of shun it and just be like, I'm not going to be a part of that, And I said, that's silly, the Packers, I'm going to embrace it and learn as much as I can about it. And that was going back, 19 years. So I've obviously gotten up to speed a lot on Lombardi era Packers and just the Packers in general. And the thing that strikes me about Starr is that he's like complete man, like a complete person, almost like, he's too good to be true in a way. The guy, his character, competitiveness, just everything about him was good, like inherently good. And it seems incredibly rare, not just in sports, but in life in general. And I was watching the video the other day from 2015, the halftime where they retired Brett Favre's number, and they brought out Starr on the golf cart with his wife, and he meets Favre, and the first thing he says is, "Hey there, mister," when he gets out of the. That was one of the coolest scenes. The fact that they were able to pull that off before he, did pass is incredible. That and Favre, what you can see when he greets him, he's just like, holy cow. I think it really hit him what legacies mean. I'm sure he kind of knows the back of his head, but living legend from 30 years ago, being able to do that was pretty damn cool. And then they ended up, I sent you guys that photo. I had forgot because of my coma that they actually were able to get one last official photo of Favre, Bart Starr, and Aaron Rodgers together. I mean, obviously that's never going to happen again. The fact that they were able to get that iconic photo was really cool. So, I mean, you look at his postseason record was 9-1. I saw somewhere that they said he was Tom Brady before 40 years before Tom Brady.
Right.
That's a good comparison because his postseason record, his championships are unbelievable. He's not the most athletic guy, kind of like Brady, but he was extremely cerebral, worked his ass off, and watching his highlights and the Ice Bowl and stuff like that is really, really cool. And I mean, obviously people know that he ended up coaching the team. It was during kind of the I don't know anything about that era at all. I mean, I know he was a coach for a while, but I don't know how much of it was, stacked against him by how the organization was structured or anything like that. But even when he was a coach, you heard nothing but good things. So it was kind of weird because when I heard he passed, I was like, oh, damn. It really, I don't want to, it sounds corny to say it kind of hit you, but it really did because he was, the fulcrum outside of Lombardi. He was the fulcrum of that Lombardi era team. And now that he's gone, I mean, who's you got Jerry Kramer, Eddie Robinson, I think there might be one or two left, and he was obviously being the quarterback, being that important. He ran the most famous play in the history of the NFL. I believe they called it the play. That's how famous it was. It was the quarterback sneak in the Ice Bowl. I even watched some of his passing, and it's I think he still has the all-time highest passer rating career in the playoffs, even today.
Yes.
That right there is a crazy stat, considering how much they chuck the ball around today and how, look at a guy like Brady and how long he's played in championships and all that. That's insane. So, I don't want to keep rambling on and on and on and on, but he, it sucks, but he just seemed like a perfect guy.
A regular dude.
Yeah.
He was like you and I, I mean, I have a cool story. What you were talking about the halftime ceremony where they came out and brought Brett Favre in 2015. My daughter was on the field when that happened. Her dance studio performed for the halftime show, and she was pretty close to where Bart Starr was. And as Bart Starr was coming off the field, he told her, he's like, honey, you're doing a great job, or something like that. And my daughter to this day was just like, that was Bart Starr? I'm like, yeah, that was Bart Starr,
Wow. Living legend. That's what's...
I've lived here my whole life, 41 years. If you talk to somebody who's talked to somebody who's talked to somebody, somebody has been touched or had some type of introduction to him or with him, or had some type of memorable experience with him. That's what kind of a dude he was. He was a community-driven, community-involved individual that I think football players, professional athletes today should really look at to become good human beings, because he truly was.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody has heard of the, it's called Rawhide. He was very instrumental in starting that. It's basically a facility for at-risk youths, and it gives them just a general guideline. It gives them guidance and teachings to become productive citizens. He was instrumental in getting that foundation going. He even contributed his Corvette that he won as an NFL MVP in the Super Bowl. I think it was 66 Super Bowl or 67. I remember which one. He donated his Corvette that he won for that game as a donation to this cause, which they got $40,000 or $45,000 for it, which at that time was a lot of money. He was the driving force on getting enough financial resources to get that up and running and being able to help at-risk youth in northeastern Wisconsin. He was just phenomenal. You mentioned during the time when he played in the 60s, that was the heyday of his career. He wasn't the well-known or the most popular quarterback. Johnny Unitas and Joe Namath were. He won more NFL titles. He's won 5.
Mm-hmm.
He won more NFL titles than Unitas, Brett Favre, Joe Namath, Steve Young, and Dan Marino combined. Think about that. Those are some great NFL QBs in our history, and he has more NFL titles than them. He is the only QB that has won 3 NFL titles in a row.
Yep.
That is an unbroken record to this point. You talked about his NFL title streak. It was broken last year, end of last year, beginning of this year, by Tom Brady, who now has 6. 10-1 playoff record. He had 213 passes total with 3 interceptions. He played with 12 Hall of Famers. That's how good those Packers were in the 60s. 12 Hall of Famers. That's
insane.
And like you said, he has the highest QB rating in the playoffs still to this day of NFL history, 104.8. The closest is Kurt Warner at 102. 157 starts from 1956 to 1971. And during the days Lombardi was coach here, he was 71-23 as the starting quarterback for the Packers. Career completion percentage, 57.4, which was tops in the NFL when he retired. I wasn't around during the times of the Lombardi era, but the one thing that was very prevalent and well known in that era was it was a running league. It was not a passing league. And he did things that quarterbacks were not meant to do, and the Ice Bowl game in 1967, that was a audible play at the line of scrimmage. It was going to be a play to their fullback, and I forgot his name, but he audibled out of it and obviously scored. They never ran that play during the whole regular season. And then all of a sudden they snuck this play out of nowhere. And how awesome is that? And Jerry Kramer, who's one of the last living legends from those teams, just speaks glowingly about him. He went through an unfortunate incident when he was going to college at University of Alabama. He went through many years, many decades, and it was supposedly an injury that he suffered from a punting exercise, but it was actually a hazing incident that went on, that he suffered extreme back injuries, that he looked like his back was pure minced meat from being paddled from his teammates, from being hazed to be introduced into the team, which was absolutely, just thinking about it today, it just kind of makes me cringe. But that was the going thing back then. Those injuries that he suffered back then, he suffered throughout his playing career. And actually in the late 80s or early 90s, he actually had back surgery. And they are, in theory, they're saying that he possibly played his whole NFL career with a back injury that was debilitating or could have paralyzed him. Just think about that. I mean, those types of things just tell you what kind of a man this guy is, and what kind of a citizen and human being we're going to miss. He's one of the last living legends that we have of the Packer era.
That's what strikes me. Sorry, I didn't.
No, I just, now that I'm talking,
he was like
the
fact that he was a living legend.
Yeah, and now that
those
I'm
are rare.
about it, it's like you just realize, holy crap, how awesome this dude was, and he was, to this day, till he passed, he was still coming to Green Bay.
Yeah.
Like you said, he took the picture with Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. Bob Harlan was very instrumental in making sure that Bart Starr, even after his playing and coaching days, was highly involved in the Green Bay Packers. And I think there was no other better individual to kind of be the de facto leader of this team than Bart Starr.
Yeah. Sorry. One thing that I was thinking, it's like I'm trying to think of one potential negative or detrimental. There's nothing you can say bad about Starr. I mean, give me anything. I mean, was he a bad coach? Maybe, but you look at the front office structure of the Packers at that time. I don't think anybody was going to be a good coach. And it was probably during that transition of how the Lombardi, the transition of how you motivate guys and money and stuff like that. But you can tell what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of grasping at something, just trying to see, because every time I think about the guy, I'm like, there's nothing bad about the guy.
No, it's bygones. The sort of like after Bill Gates left Microsoft and did all this philanthropy, everyone's memories of people that are our age, they all remember all of these just good things that he's done since.
Yeah, that's true.
I barely even remember him coaching, but I certainly don't remember him playing other than the historic plays and the clips, right? So I don't feel like I'm even qualified to say whether he was a good coach or not, one way or the other.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't have even said that, because I know the least about that stuff.
No. I mean, it's super hard to, because that is a thing. That's a strike on his record, and it's it's on Wikipedia. It's not like it's it's hidden information, right? So I've seen him a couple times. The one where I grabbed a little picture that I put out on Facebook, that was at a campaign rally for a candidate. And so in Wisconsin, so he came up from down south, came up here to it was at a Packer game, but there was a campaign rally for a candidate, and so I had Max was in his Packer gear on my shoulders, and just like you did with your daughter, Jeremy, he gives a little good for yous, the winks and nods to the kids, all of those things. I don't know how old he was. That was probably 10 years ago now. He was in much better health then. I think that was probably right before I think he had a stroke, right? So
yeah, 14.
No.
Yeah. So maybe it was that long ago already. I don't know. Time flies. But if you guys have any other things, I guess I'd like to. I got 2 clips that I was going to set up. You guys have any other thoughts?
The only thing I had, and this is my dad is a big. He loved the Lombardi era Packers. Yeah. I mean, him being a big business guy, he I don't want to say he idolizes Lombardi. That's not the right thing to say, but he uses a lot of Lombardi's sayings and tenets of how you build a team and all that. But where I'm kind of going with this is he has a lot of Packer memorabilia, behind glass in his basement. He lives in and he has it's a picture of Brett Favre and Bart Starr from probably like 1995, and you've seen it. It's like they're just sitting at Lambeau, and they each got their jersey on, and Favre looks like he's like 24, 23, 24. He's young, but it's signed by both of them, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
And every time I go over there, I look at that picture and I'm like, that's pretty damn cool. So that's what I keep going back to, is like, he's one of those guys, and kind of like what Favre was later in his career, a living legend. There's guys who are really, really good, but they're not, top echelon Hall of Famer type things. But then there are some guys who, without question, first ballot Hall of Famer, all timer kind of things. And he was one of those guys, and lived a long life. Obviously, you'd like for him to live. But that's it just strikes me how good of a guy he was, because the first thing I think of when I think of him outside of Packers is, man, the guy had so everything about him was good and to help other people, and that's so freaking rare. So I just keep going back to that.
I know I wrote a quick blog before our show tonight. There was many interviews that other people and players have conducted, but the one that really kind of struck me was Troy Aikman. After they won the 1995 Super Bowl, Troy Aikman had to have elbow surgery.
Yeah.
And who shows up at the hospital?
Right.
Bart Starr.
Right.
And Bart Starr's there just, saying, hey, man, you have so much left to do. Go out there and do it. And Aikman to this day says he was very influential in making sure that he kept playing. But just, he did that to many players. He would go and just be there and support, and how many people do that?
Yeah.
Do you see Michael Jordan going out and, going to LeBron James's house and telling him whatever? I mean, you don't see guys do that,
Yeah.
That's true. How many professional athletes care about the generations before them and after them and so on and so forth? There are not many.
That's very well said.
Bart Starr cared about every generation, whether it was 40 years after his playing day. He enjoyed it all.
No, that's
just
very well said. That's a great thought right there for sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, Elliot, you said you had something?
So I got my two clips. So you want to end on that?
Yeah.
Okay. So so I just want to set those up. So today is Memorial Day. Today happens to be my grandmother's birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. So she's 87 today.
Wow.
And so right outside her out of her place, she has, and she just put it out yesterday. She has a World's Greatest Fan with her and Bart Starr in it. And so it was always a running joke in our family, that my grandfather had to behave or
Nice.
So that's my earliest memory of Bart Starr, actually, is the joke that my grandmother would be there in a second. And of course I was always in jest because as I sent the clip earlier to you guys, she said had nothing but great things to say about it. So that's one clip, and so it was her birthday today. So while I was there, I happened to be able to catch my dad there too, and he told a story that I never heard before, which blows my mind because my dad talks so much. It's unbelievable how much my dad talks, and I never heard this story before. So I hope these are great stories. I actually don't even know the way that the clips go on Facebook, if you guys heard the whole clip or anything. So when this comes out,
I saw a little bit of them.
Yeah,
but
yeah. So
not much.
So you heard the whole thing.
What's your first memory of Bart Starr?
Well, only when I met him at some luncheon meetings, and he impressed me as a true gentleman. He was. He never said nasty words, didn't preach to people, just talked about trying to teach. And of course, he himself was raised in a military family, Bart Starr. His father was a military man, and he wasn't easy on him either. But that's as much as we know. I didn't know personally. I talked to him, yes, but that's all.
What's your favorite memory of Bart Starr?
Well, I suppose, I don't know if I would say that. Some people would say the couple games that he really won himself. And yes, that impressed me, but he impressed me more with his personality and the kind of man he was.
First time I met Bart Starr was probably when I was about a sophomore in high school, where he came up to Sturgeon Bay and went to a citywide youth gathering for all the youth from the churches. So we went over to Bayview Lutheran Church and met him, and he talked. And afterward, he went around and talked to almost everybody in the room. So I got to talk, ask him questions and all that, which I don't remember the questions anymore. But the most memorable time I met was when, back in 1986, I was in the National Guard then, and we went over to Germany for 3 weeks. And so it was like, that was the first time I was ever away from the family that long. But it was a thing. I wrote letters back from Germany, and then I think some of them even arrived after I got back. But I came in and I flew in from via Madison, flew into Green Bay on a United flight, and we got off the airplane and I was going down the runway. People could go down the concourses and meet planes in those days. So a little up near the end of the concourse, my wife was there with 2 of my kids, and they were the ones that couldn't go to school. This was in February. All the other 2 oldest were in school, but Justin was 5 and Corey was 2 years old then. And all of a sudden when I came, they saw me and they started running, and they ran down, got me, and I had 2 kids, 1 in each hand, and I looked up and there was Bart Starr on his way to go take a flight out. And he stopped, he enjoyed that moment. 2 kids jumping on a soldier in my uniform, and it was like, nobody had a camera, huh? But it was a no one, and he looked, and all I could do is give him a thumbs up, because that was Bart Starr, okay? The best quarterback I ever knew. And he nodded and said, nice. And they walked off and went on to the flight.
Podcast.
I know, right?